Steve Weintraub with Collider, and I'm here with the good folks behind Villains. I want to give a huge thank you. The only reason we get to be at South by Southwest is because of sponsors. It's really expensive to be here. Huge thank you to El Tesoro for being our sponsor. Tequila, it's good to drink. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Yeah. First of all, thank you all so much for coming into the studio. I really sincerely appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
I have to start with, I'm a big fan of your work, and I've seen all of Burn Notice, and I'm just curious, do people still stop you all the time from the show? Is it one of these things that has sort of stayed with you?
Probably, yeah, more than any other thing I've done. And it's funny because I think I've done 9 movies and 2 other TV shows since, and it's always the first thing. It's like, aren't you the guy from Burn Notice? And it's great because I didn't know it basically plays around the world now, and I knew Netflix had it for a while. Now Amazon has it, so yeah, it's just living on beyond me. I think they also are surprised at how bad I look now, which is not surprising. I looked great then, and I look horrible now, and that's fine. But that's the biggest surprise.
The thing is, I've spoken to a lot of actors who, when their shows start going on streaming, how it completely opens up, where, you know, all these people are discovering things now on Netflix or Amazon. So it's like, you know, a whole second life, and people are watching it at, like, you know, someone today is starting Burn Notice for the first time, and all of a sudden binging all the seasons.
Yeah, that's definitely true. In fact, my own example is I watched Breaking Bad on Netflix. It was on AMC. I didn't even know that. I mean, and I was like, no, it's a Netflix show. And they're like, no, it was on AMC. I was like, what's AMC? So yeah.
You guys are here for Villains, and
Yes.
Everyone watching this, maybe 2 people have seen the movie by the time someone's watching this, so I hate asking the generic question, but talk a little bit about what it's about, and if you don't mind, who you play.
Yeah, so Villains is a dark comedy. It's about 2 amateur criminals that break into a suburban home, and they find a little girl chained up in the basement. Which does sound very dark, but it's a comedy. It's fun. And basically they decide they're going to help this little girl, but before they can do that, the homeowners arrive home, who are this sort of kind of affluent, you know, buttoned-up suburban couple, and the whole movie plays as the sort of power struggle between these 2 couples in a single house. And Jeff plays George, who is one of said homeowners, and obviously is not happy to find these 2, you know, junkie drifters in his home.
I found that recently I've been interviewing a lot of people that are directing together, writing together.
Sure.
How did you 2 actually meet? And of course I have to ask, what's the biggest fight you had on set while making this?
Oh, that's a great one. I'll have to think about that. But we met, we were freshman year roommates at New York University.
Randomly assigned.
Yeah, so big ups to the NYU Bursar's office for starting this creative partnership. And yeah, we just, you know, we were just best friends for years before we started to actually work together. And, you know, I think that's kind of the special sauce in what we do. I think if we weren't close, if we weren't like brothers who could get into arguments with one another and be fine 2 seconds later, it would be a whole different story. You know, people always ask us, you know, what's it like directing with 2 of you or whatever, but that's the only way we've ever worked. So I think we would sooner ask, like, well, how do you direct as one person? You know, like, how do you know your ideas are good? You know, how do you do that without having that filter of that other person that checks you? You know,
it eliminates the shittiest of ideas right away.
Exactly.
To have somebody else to say, you know, to stop it before it gets to the world.
Because
So.
you get to a certain point too where people won't say no to you when you're the director sometimes, you know. I mean, Jeff will, but like, you know, like and so you get into this situation sometimes where you can have a bad idea for a movie. If you made one successful movie, you can have a bad idea for a second one, and somebody might just give you the money to make it, and you go and you do it, and just nobody ever says no to you the whole time, and you wind up making a bad second movie or something. But, you know, I think we always have somebody at, you know, the highest level of the set that's a check on you. You know, like I need, if I'm gonna come up with something, it's got to be something that Dan wants to do too, and vice versa. So sorry, second part of the question was our biggest fight on set.
Oh, definitely.
We try to get them out before hand, you know?
Right. Yeah, I don't know if there were a ton on set where we went back and forth.
I'm gonna stop you there. I'm gonna fact check you.
Sure,
So
yeah,
that was
please.
A better answer, probably.
No, I actually never saw them fight. They would have, definitely some very passionate discussions, and I'm not downplaying by saying that they were really heated for what they were trying to get after, and just like we were saying, they were basically checking each other. But I do remember one particular day, I think I had to speak for 4 pages. Uninterrupted.
It was like 8.
And yeah, maybe 8 pages. I've blocked it out. And they both came on, but separately. Usually it's one stays at the monitor and the other comes and gives notes. But what happened was Bobby came over and gave me like 8 notes. And then he left, and then Dan came over and gave me like 7 notes. And then they walked away, and I think Kyra goes, I think they just gave you 15 notes, but they don't know that. I was like, yeah, that's basically just what
We're
happened.
very easy to work with.
Well, that was the incredible part of working with these 4 actors, was just how, how professional everybody is, and how, I mean, especially Jeff and Kyra, having been #1 on the call sheet on these gigantic shows for years. Like we learned so much, working with them and seeing that like that anecdote ended with him taking 15 notes and nailing all of them. You know what I mean? So it was a pretty special experience working with, bona fide movie stars.
The 4 leads in this movie are all very talented actors, and it's hard to have, everyone, there's a lot of competition. I'm curious what compromising photos you have to get all 4 of them in the movie together.
They're just compromising photos of ourselves that we sent to them.
Right, exactly, yeah. And then they became complicit in the acts they're in.
Please stop sending them. We'll do it.
Right. Yeah.
Just stop sending them.
But seriously, can you talk a little bit about putting together this cast? And Jeffrey, what was it about the script and the project that said, I want to do this?
Sure. Yeah. So, the casting process was... we had very, very specific sort of stipulations for each of these roles. So, there wasn't this enormous list of people that we could pull from that would make Bobby and I happy. And I think that the first actor we got on was Bill Skarsgård, and Mickey was a challenge for us because we really wanted this character to have this kind of life, like dancer-like sort of physicality and this charisma that we kind of wanted him to feel like this sort of like this 90s heartthrob type thing, and we really weren't finding that. And then one of our producers suggested Bill Skarsgård, who we really just hadn't considered, and obviously he was very hot. He's with Pennywise. It had just been kind of this smash. And we Skyped with him, and he was incredibly down to earth and really passionate about the material. And so we brought him on, and that kind of opened the floodgates. And, very, very lucky to get Maika Monroe interested in the script. Actually, when Bobby and I wrote this script in 2015, we had just seen It Follows, and we were like, Maika Monroe is perfect for this. But, we sort of told the producers we were interested in that, and they were like, maybe go fuck yourself. You're not going to get Maika Monroe right now. But then 2 years later, it just kind of came back around because she has the same agent as Bill. So,
Or compromising photos.
Yes, exactly. And we revealed the compromising photos. And then... for Jeff and Kyra, I mean, we were in love with Jeff's work in Fargo season 2. It was just like when we saw that character, we were like, oh, fuck. Because George kind of has to do this thing where he's straddling making you laugh and sort of terrifying you. And there's a surprisingly small amount of actors in Hollywood that can do that and genuinely do it, where you're really...
And are still alive.
Yeah. Right, that's a big one.
Yeah.
I think when we first Skyped with Jeff, I was just blown away by his ability to articulate the tone of the movie better than we could.
Right away.
It was always this type of thing where we knew that it was this, that it was a little outside of the box, a little strange, funny but dark. And the way that he put it, saying that it, operates kind of just south of farce, it kind of became our rallying cry for how we, built the tone of this movie. And he was kind of like a co-architect in that. So it was...
And because Jeff and Kyra are these incredibly experienced actors, like on set, they needed to have a really strong grasp of that tone because we needed them to be sort of quarterbacks while working with the other actors. And so we were just so lucky to have that in Jeff and Kyra.
Yeah,
for sure.
and Kyra was the same sort of way where she just instantly got who Gloria was. We always talked about Gloria as being this sort of Tennessee Williams-esque character that's like plucked out of one of his plays and thrown into this movie, and she has this like kind of very Blanche Dubois like quality about her. And one of the first things Kyra said to us was, "Hey, this character reminds me of something out of Tennessee Williams," and we were like, "Oh my God, this is it," And to have to have them, like Dan said, on set quarterbacking the tone, like it's a scary thing sometimes to ask actors to really go for it and play in a slightly heightened world, because if you mess that up, it can be embarrassing, you know. Like if you're really going for it and the movie turns out to be a stinker, like you can look like more of a fool than if you just did, you know, maybe like a family drama that didn't turn out so well. At least you on screen weren't, you know, taking all these chances and making a fool of yourself, like we were asking them to potentially do. So it was, it was very special.
You know, what they said was true, that it's a very specific tone, and it's not really out there. It's and a lot of my choices, I like to do things that, one, challenge me in ways that I haven't done, you know, up till now, and the other is can I pull it off? You know, there are roles and there are projects where I was like, oh, I could do this. This is not something that's out of my comfort zone, or I've done before, and this is something I'd never done on screen before. Just like they said, it's just shy of farce, but the stakes are so high, and the circumstances of what the plot is about these kids who are villains who stumble upon a house, and what is seemingly just a old doting couple turn into even worse villains than them. And to see that evolution and that psychology and somehow bring, hopefully, humor to it, I knew it was going to be a big challenge. And then having Skyped with them and they agreed that this is the tone we're going for, I knew I'd want to do it just to see, like I said, can we pull it off?
One of the things about the movie is that it primarily takes place in one location,
Yep.
which is obviously a budgetary thing, as well as, I mean, the fact is it's a one location. Do you, as an actor, do you prefer working in that kind of thing where it's like that one location, or do you know what I mean? And also talk a little bit about the fact that, you know, it is just one location, and was it written that way because you're thinking?
Yeah, I mean, one location, it doesn't, for me, it didn't matter. I mean, it's, you just knew where you're going to work every day, really, you know. And what's interesting also about the house was, because you worked in the house every day, and these characters were trapped in the house, literally, and then we were trapped as actors figuratively. Having going there every day, there was a certain monotony and there was a certain craziness to just being there every single day for a month and a half. That, you know, I probably helped the film in some way.
Yeah. As far as the impetus for the single location, Bobby and I, our first feature is a movie called Body, and that also takes place 95% in a single home in a mansion. And a sort of lesson that we learned making that movie, which was a total shoestring budget, it was an 11-night shoot, it was 11 consecutive overnights, it was like $50,000. Also kind of lost our minds a little with the crew in this single house, but you know, after the dust had settled, we kind of realized that because we owned that location and we left our lights up, we left all the gear up, we could walk away from a setup at 7 p.m. on one night and come back in at 6 a.m. the next morning, and just start there. You know, you're not burning 2 hours at the head and tail of every day loading in and loading out. So we got, you know, whatever it was, 25-30% more actual shooting time, and so our 11-day shoot felt more like 15 days. So when we sat down to write this script, we were like, we think that we haven't yet grown out of this. Why don't we do it in one location again? And you know, that way we can really stretch our dollar.
Like, that was going to be something that proved to be such a positive the first time, and we can kind of just do the bigger version of that. And you know, and really now our horizons are expanding. We're talking about the next movie maybe not even being in a house. You know, it might be on a boat or in a hospital. There might even be more than one location. We'll see.
I got to tell you, I didn't even think about that extra time you get for not unloading and loading.
I mean, that 11 days, it was like 15 days because of it. You know, it makes a gigantic
and
difference.
especially with our movies that are, you know, they're chatty. They're very, very performance dependent. You know, and they're, at least these two have been, you know, very monologue-y. I mean, like Jeff said, we made these actors, you know, do a lot of lines, and so you want to have the time to do a couple more takes than you would otherwise. Like it would be potentially lethal to the project to have to rush through and only be able to get one take of a huge line or a huge chunk of a monologue or something. So that those extra couple hours really do kind of save your ass.
Yeah, I mean, you talk to any like AD or line producer, like company moves are what kill you, and that's like that's the number one thing. That's the piece of advice that we pass on to other filmmakers who ever ask us, like, what have we done that has worked? Where do we start? It's like write something that takes place in one space so that you can actually
unless you have a crazy budget.
Get it done.
Unless you have a
Exactly.
crazy
Of course. I mean, it goes without saying. But I'm saying if you're putting this together from just like plucking out of your savings or asking your grandmother to give you 10 grand because you want to make a short, like if you can keep the locations down, that's more time that you have to actually shoot the film.
Also, those logistical restraints often lead to like creative gems. Like we find that. I mean, maybe we're just optimists, but we find that you make discoveries and stuff when you kind of remove all the other variables and the other spectacle, and it's just like putting 4 actors or 2 actors or whatever in a room, and give yourself that's the box you have to operate in, and then you find ways to find the magic in that.
I've spoken to a lot of filmmakers that say the limitations are what really help the creative process. But everyone who comes through, when we do lounges like this or studios at locations, we like to do something called Get to Know. In this place, it's going to be Get to Know Your South by Southwest attendee. Sure. I promise these are harmless questions, a little bit out of the box. What TV show would you love to guest star on? And what TV show would you guys like to guest write and direct?
It's no longer on, but I would have cut my left arm off to be on Veep. I loved that show. I loved the writing. Iannucci created just such a great satire, and I'm a huge fan of his. And Julia, I would have loved to just share the screen with her. If I got a choice right now, it'd be guest on Veep. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what the. Yeah, sure. Just what I'm watching right now. I don't know if this is my whole life. I might have liked other TV more, but I just finished Russian Doll, and I just love anything that's like a sort of a genre blend that's like sci-fi but with a heart, with like sort of like this kind of a love story, this humanity at the core of it. That's like our bread and butter. Like we love that type of stuff. So yeah, would not mind should there be a season 2 to do that. If anyone's watching, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with The Good Place. It's just such a nice, sweet environment to be in, and I feel like
a nice time to be in
I
that
would just
writer's
like
room.
to be with those actors, and in that the way that show just kind of manages to be like very mainstream but also really high concept. I always just think it's a kind of it's in a unique space. I think it's really funny, and the writers on that show are really incredible.
Completely agree. Do you guys have a favorite sci-fi or fantasy film?
I always go back to, and it's everyone's list is Aliens.
I was just gonna say the same thing.
Alien. Ridley Scott.
Which one?
Yeah, Alien.
Pick.
Not with us. What I talk about one set. I mean, just and what he did and the horror and the fear, and I just saw it. It was something like 40 years ago.
77-ish.
Just unbelievable. On that, and it's still like it was about 10 years ago in my mind. So yeah,
It's a masterclass in how you reveal a monster, and what you don't show. I would probably say, I hope it counts, but Brazil, I think, is like just one of my favorite movies, and I think that there's like, nothing more terrifying than that kind of dystopian futurism. I'm a sucker for all that stuff. So yeah. I'm gonna go. Whenever it comes on, it always makes me feel good. Never Ending Story. Oh,
just
yeah.
a great feel-good fantasy
course.
film. Come on.
Of course.
Sure. Is that the David Bowie one?
No, that's Labyrinth.
No, that's Labyrinth.
Yeah.
Also-
Also
good.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll
Wait,
take it.
who's riding on a dog? It's a big dog.
That's
Never Ending Story.
Never
Well,
Ending
I'm sorry. It's actually a luck
It's a luck dragon, but it's fine.
Falcor.
It's fine.
It's
We don't
okay,
have
yeah.
to like sit here and
Yeah, we're not gonna
talk about the
nitpick.
specifics. Yeah.
Now you know what it was like on set.
Example A.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you guys collect?
I don't so much collect it anymore, but I've got a couple of decks, Magic the Gathering cards. That's my jam back in the day. I still got a couple floating around.
His fiance is going to be happy
She's
about
really
that being
excited
public.
about that,
I have a small collection of vintage cameras, which I guess is a little bit cliche for a filmmaker to have, but my wife and I had a baby 8 months ago, and we needed to make space, so I threw about half of them away.
No, he
so
doesn't have any.
It's the now. Yeah, I'm getting rid of it. I'm collecting free space that the cameras used to occupy. So.
Yeah.
Do you remember your first movie or TV show crush?
Molly Ringwald, Breakfast Club.
I think probably one of the biggest ones was Natalie Portman in Star Wars Episode 1. Like, I don't know why.
What?
It really, really stuck with me though, and I became like this huge Natalie Portman freak. It was funny. It wasn't until
Wasn't she
that.
under a blanket the entire time?
She had like the.
Also, was it her?
fine.
Was it the
Padme?
royal body
Padme?
double? Yeah, because you
I
don't really know.
That's part
I
of
know
it.
what they're saying, and that's the worst part. I understand.
I think.
By the way, I think Keira Knightley was one of the doubles.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's.
I think you're
in
right.
Episode 1 of Star Wars, Natalie
When you
Portman.
say episode, it's like a TV series?
No. So,
Oh man.
yeah.
Come
So
on.
Star Wars has episodes
Yeah.
like 1 through
Come
9,
on.
and Episode 1 was the Phantom Menace, and Padme was like she had decoys on the plane, and
They're in the midst of a trade war.
Yeah, there was
so
a
things
trade
get
war with the
very, it could
Federation.
be very scary for a royal.
Jeffrey's like, I didn't sign up for this. Let me go.
Yeah, we do 20 minutes on the
So,
Gungans. Like
Villains.
It was, I think, Sandra Bullock in what's the one where she's a hacker?
Proposal
The Net
with Ryan Reynolds?
Yeah, where she's got the really chunky laptop. Yeah.
It's her in Speed though too.
Oh, that's true.
Like,
But yeah, it was Sandra Bullock for sure.
Yeah.
We went off on a tangent on this one.
Yeah.
What TV show have you watched all the way through more than once?
Breaking Bad.
All the way through more than once. Arrested Development and the British Office.
British Office is a good one. Well, I guess it's not all the way through 'cause it's not done, but I've recently rewatched Game of Thrones just because if it's not clear from the Falcor Luck Dragon correction, I'm rather nerdy when it comes to this stuff. But yeah.
Have you ever seen Game of Thrones?
This guy's got three kids.
I can tell by the face. He's like,
All right.
Yeah, the kids are too young for Game of Thrones.
No, but did you see the episode of Dora the Explorer the other day? Because who saw that coming?
Yeah. Unbelievable.
I've got 3 under 6, so there isn't like hours and hours of streaming going on in my house.
Bubble
Pull-
Guppies
yeah.
is some good television right now.
Though my children have learned, we have the remote where you can talk into it, right? You know, and
mistake.
so you can say like Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, or or you could say Game of Thrones, but that has not been said. And so, but it's funny to hear them go like Dora Explorer, and you see these odd titles come up.
Yeah.
Like Sin City, and you're like, no.
Yeah, it's like, did you mean
The
Sallow?
Professional. No. Like, I'm like, how did they get the Professional out of Dora the Explorer? But
Yeah. Now playing Caligula. Yeah.
one of my last things for you guys. I'm always curious how people got interested in the entertainment industry. Like, what made you become an actor or want to be an actor? What made you want to go to NYU to study filmmaking? Do you remember what it was as a kid, or was it a performance?
Poverty.
I mean, hey.
It's
You
a
fixed
great
it.
motivator.
It's very true.
And I don't know how to instill that on my children. I just don't. Other
'em
than
out.
just get on the porch and sleep out there, and I'm not going to feed you for 4 days. No, I. That's not going to happen. Child
worry,
services.
kids.
I actually didn't know, and it's going to sound weird. I didn't know acting was a profession when I was growing up. I watched it on TV, and I was a big fan of like Jimmy Stewart, and I'd be watching his movie, and he'd be yelling, "Marion, where are the kids?" And I'd be like going, "God, he's so great." And then I'd see him at the premiere of some sort of thing with the bad guy, like Mr. Potter. I'd be like, how can they be friends?
After all that.
After all the things he did to you, why are you smiling and hugging him?
Remember that documentary you guys were in?
And I was 24 at the time. No, I was a young guy. I mean, I was a kid, and it didn't make sense to me. But I knew I wanted to do that. I wanted to make up voices and characters, and I would perform for my family and my friends, and then so it was. It was very early on, but it was such an odd thing to go, wait a minute, you're going to pay me to do this? This is like the best job ever. I get paid, not in their film, but I get paid to do things.
Yeah, I think like probably the earliest thing I think is probably just like playing with action figures as a little boy, and just, you know, you have these. I would
what?
I would just have these like, you know, these like elaborate backstories, and it was always like this that had nothing to do with the you know, the comic book universes that they came from. I would just kind of like, you know, make up who these people were, and had this like saga that I would just pick back up every time I took the toys out. And I think that was the first time that there was ever like a creation of a story in my brain. You know what I mean?
I think that my introduction to physical filmmaking was a little bit like less sort of like poetic. I think it was sort of actually like on like the technology or the software side. Like I was into computers from a very young age, and you know, I was on the family computer all the time. And then, you know, when I was when it was like whatever it was, Final Cut like version 1, you know, the super early clunky stuff, like I kind of like somehow stumbled upon that and started learning like the editing software when I was in like 8th grade. And yeah, I kind of like figured out that this medium existed, and that like storytelling was something that I kind of was drawn to. And then by the time I was, you know, 15, I was like, I know what I want to do with my life. And I just sort of like pursued it from there, and, you know, the rest was kind of history. And
it's funny because we go back and like look at the you know, because we didn't know each other until college, but you go back and look at the films that we made with our friends in high school. It's remarkable how similar and how dumb they are.
Yeah, but you know, a lot of people have that experience, I think. But yeah, so yeah, I don't know, it just kind of worked that way.
On that note, I'm going to say congratulations on being part of South by Southwest.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming in the studio, and I wish you guys nothing but the best.
Thanks
so much for having us.
Appreciate it.
Cool.